Do you wake up with pain in your hands or feet? With that uncomfortable tingling that seems to worsen in the early hours of the morning? Or with joint stiffness right at the first steps of the day? I am Dr. Eduardo Vasconcelos, a specialist doctor in health after 60, and I want to tell you something that many colleagues avoid telling their patients. My Aunt Olga, who is now 88 years old, always believed that nuts are healthy for everyone. She ate a handful every day. It was her favorite snack. But it only took removing a specific type of nut from her routine, and in 3 months her energy changed completely. The pain in her hands decreased, the swelling disappeared, and even her mood became lighter. And why am I telling you this? Because there are 4 nuts that are extremely dangerous for those over 60, nuts that increase inflammation, hinder circulation, and wreck your digestive system without you noticing. And on the contrary, there are 4 powerful nuts that strengthen the heart, reduce inflammation, and improve overall health when consumed in the right way. Mr. Nikolai Petrov from Rostov, 73 years old, ate a healthy nut every day, believing he was doing good. The result was such a severe inflammatory crisis that he had to be hospitalized urgently. But when we corrected just that, removed the wrong nut and replaced it with the right one, in 6 months his cholesterol dropped, his blood pressure stabilized, and that persistent pain in his fingers simply disappeared. And pay close attention, because the last nut was a discovery I personally made, a personal recommendation. And before continuing, do me an important favor. Leave your age and city in the comments here. I make these videos to understand how many seniors are receiving this information and how many lives this kind of alert can transform. Now, let's separate what truly protects your health from what can silently destroy your body. Let's begin. First, dangerous nut. Peanut. Peanuts are one of the most dangerous nuts for those over 60. And this is not my assumption. It is well documented in scientific literature. The problem has nothing to do with fat, calories, or salt. The real risk comes from aflatoxins, toxins produced by fungi of the Aspergillus type. And among all nuts, peanuts are the easiest food to contaminate. The World Health Organization classifies aflatoxins as one of the most toxic natural substances known. And a study published in the World Journal of Mycotoxins clearly shows peanuts are one of the 3 most vulnerable foods to this type of contamination worldwide, especially in hot and humid countries. Another study from the journal Food Toxicology and Chemistry shows that these toxins cause systemic inflammation, oxidative stress, liver irritation, and worsening immune function. And the most dangerous, they do not alter smell, taste, or appearance. In other words, you eat and have no idea what is entering your body. And for the elderly, this is particularly serious. After 60, the liver's ability to neutralize toxins naturally decreases, meaning the body suffers much more. That's why so many people at this age live with swelling, stomach weight, persistent fatigue, joint pain, and think it's normal for age. In fact, in many cases, it's the peanut. So I am very clear when I tell my patients, if you are over 60, remove peanuts from your routine, especially the processed, roasted, and salted ones. Science leaves no doubt for this age group the risks far outweigh any benefits. Second most dangerous nut, Brazil nut. Now let's talk about the Brazil nut. It is great in small quantities, but for those over 60, it becomes dangerous very quickly, and I will explain why. The Brazil nut is the most concentrated natural food source of selenium in the world. And here is the problem. The elderly have a lower capacity to metabolize this mineral. In other words, what would be beneficial in microdoses becomes toxic when slightly overdone. And this is not an exaggeration. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition shows that a single large nut can already exceed the safe daily limit for a large part of the population. And a paper in the journal Environmental Health describes exactly the symptoms of selenium excess: hair loss, nausea, gastrointestinal irritation, cardiac changes, and, an important detail, signs of neuropathy, such as tingling and numbness in the extremities. And what makes the situation more complicated is that many people eat Brazil nuts as if they were peanuts. 3, 4, 5 a day. For an elderly person, that's asking for trouble. I've seen this in the office several times. Patients who arrive saying, "Doctor, my hand is tingling. My digestion has worsened. I'm acting strange. It feels like my body is heavy." And when you look into it, the person has been consuming excess selenium for months, thinking they were boosting their immunity. So I always speak clearly. If you're over 60, Brazil nuts are not a free snack. They shouldn't be eaten like almonds. They are a potent nut, to the point that in excess they can cause real toxicity. The rule is simple. Either avoid them completely or consume them in a highly controlled manner with guidance. Because for this age group, overdoing it with this nut poses more risk than benefit. The third dangerous nut, macadamia. Many people see her as a chic, sophisticated, small, harmless nut. But for those over 60, she can be a serious problem, and I will explain exactly why. Macadamia is, among all common nuts, the richest in fat per gram. It's not a little more, it's much more. It practically contains 75% fat, most of which is monounsaturated. And what is the problem with that? An elderly person's body does not metabolize heavy fats as efficiently as before. This is not theory, it's physiology. Classic studies published in the Journal of Gerontology show that after 60, the liver slows down lipid metabolism, and the postprandial, the period after meals, becomes more inflammatory. And there's more. A nutrients study shows that meals with dense fats can temporarily raise triglycerides, increase inflammatory markers, and slow circulation for a few hours. Now imagine this in real life. The elderly person eats a handful of macadamia and spends the entire afternoon with heavier circulation, slow digestion, drowsiness, fluctuating blood pressure, and that feeling of a dragging body. And do you know what the silent danger is? Macadamia is so caloric and rich in fat that just a small handful can generate all this. It is too dense for this age group. I have seen people say, "But doctor, it's a good fat." And I always respond, yes, it's a good fat, for those with a young metabolism. For those over 60, much of this fat turns into transient inflammation, worsens digestion, and slows circulation. That's why I am very direct. If you are over 60 years old, macadamia is not a nut to eat every day, and much less in quantity. It can be tasty, it can be elegant, but for your body, it is too heavy. Fourth dangerous nut, processed, caramelized, and salted nuts. Now, let me tell you about a type of nut that many people don't even realize is harmful. Processed nuts. Those packaged, caramelized, full of salt, vegetable oil, or overly roasted. The problem with them is not the nut itself. It's what they do to it. When a nut is roasted at very high temperatures, it oxidizes. And studies published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry show that this oxidation produces inflammatory compounds that an elderly person's body has difficulty neutralizing. Then you add refined salt, and the American Heart Association has already shown that those over 60 are more sensitive to sodium. Result: blood pressure rises, swelling increases. And caramelized versions have another problem: heated sugar. The organization Diabetes Care explains that this forms compounds that accelerate inflammation and worsen joint pain. So, no matter how innocent a handful of these nuts may seem, for those over 60, they are a silent trigger. They press on the liver, increase inflammation, and make circulation heavier. That's why I speak plainly. If you are over 60, avoid processed nuts. Always prefer the natural version, without salt, sugar, or oil. Now that you understand which nuts can harm you after 60, we need to make the opposite move. Because not everything is a threat. There are indeed nuts that help your heart, circulation, energy, and even your memory. And this is where many people go wrong. They remove the dangerous food, but do not replace it with anything. So from now on, I want to show you the 4 nuts that really make a difference for those over 60. There are options that work in your favor, reducing inflammation, protecting the brain, and truly improving health. Let's go. First beneficial nut, the common nut. Let's start with the most important of all, the common nut, the traditional nut that everyone knows. It is truly beneficial for those over 60. And the reason is simple. This nut is one of the best natural plant-based sources of omega-3, especially ALA, which helps control inflammation and protects the arteries. A study published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology showed that people who frequently consume the common nut have less inflammation and better arterial elasticity, which is crucial after 60, when circulation naturally slows down. Another study, published in the journal Nutrients, indicates that ALA improves endothelial function, which is the ability of blood vessels to dilate. This brings very concrete effects: less oscillating pressure, less weight on the legs, and more energy. And there is also the brain factor. The common nut is rich in polyphenols, antioxidants that protect the brain. The Journal of Nutrition, Health, and Aging observed better memory, better focus, and longer reaction time in elderly people who consumed this nut regularly. Now, how to consume it the right way? For those over 60, the recommendation is simple: 3 to 4 units per day, preferably natural, without salt, without sugar, and without aggressive roasting. This amount is already sufficient to generate benefits without burdening digestion. Including it this way, this nut truly works in your favor. Second beneficial nut, almonds. Almonds are one of the best choices for those over 60. And I say this because they work on 2 fronts that are fundamental at this age: the heart and blood sugar. Let me explain. Almonds are rich in healthy fats, fiber, and vitamin E, and there is strong evidence about this. A study published in the Journal of the American Heart Association showed that daily almond consumption reduces oxidized LDL, which is precisely the most dangerous fraction of cholesterol, the one that inflames the arteries. And for those over 60, this is gold. Less oxidized LDL means less arterial stiffness, less circulatory risk, and a heart that works with less effort. There is another important point. Because of the fiber and the way they release energy, almonds help control blood sugar. A study in the journal Clinical and Experimental Metabolism showed that including almonds in the meal reduces the postprandial glycemic peak, that rapid increase in blood sugar that tires the elderly's body so much. And there's vitamin E, an antioxidant that protects the skin, nerves, and brain. Several observational studies relate regular almond consumption with a lower risk of cognitive decline in the elderly. Now, how much to consume? For those over 60, the ideal is a small portion, 7 to 10 units per day, always natural, without salt and without sugary coating. This amount already provides all the benefits without burdening digestion and without excess. Included in this way, almonds help maintain circulation, energy, and blood sugar levels much more stable. The third beneficial nut, cashew nut. Cashew nut is one of the best options for those over 60, and many people have no idea about this. First, because it is an excellent source of magnesium, a mineral involved in more than 300 reactions in the body, including muscle relaxation, blood pressure control, and nerve health. And here comes the evidence. A study published in Hypertension Research showed that adequate magnesium intake helps reduce blood pressure, especialmente em pessoas mais velhas que naturalmente têm mais rigidez arterial. Additionally, cashew nuts have a combination of healthy fats that improve the lipid profile. A study published in the journal Nutrition, Metabolism, and Cardiovascular Diseases showed that regularly consuming cashew nuts reduces LDL and improves insulin sensitivity, two critical factors for those over 60. E há detalhe que poucas pessoas mencionam: é rico em triptofano, precursor da serotonina. Isso ajuda a melhorar o humor, o sono e senso de bem-estar, o que é extremamente valioso a esta fase da vida. Now, many people are afraid of cashew nuts because they think they fatten, but studies show that, in controlled portions, they do not increase weight and even improve metabolic markers. And what is the right way to consume them? After 60, the ideal is a well-defined portion, 5 to 7 units per day, preferably natural, without salt and without excessive roasting. Thus, it helps regulate blood pressure, improves nerves, and maintains more stable energy, without exaggeration and without risks. Fourth beneficial nut, pistachio. And to conclude this list of truly beneficial nuts after 60, we need to talk about pistachio. It is perhaps the most underrated of all, and at the same time one of the most powerful, especially for circulation and energy. Pistachio is very rich in lutein, anthocyanins, and healthy fats, and there is very solid evidence about this. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition showed that pistachio improves endothelial function, which is the ability of blood vessels to relax and allow more efficient blood flow. For those over 60, this means less fluctuating pressure, less feeling of heavy legs, and more vitality in daily life. Another important point: pistachio has a surprising effect on glucose control. A study by the magazine Cuidados com Diabetes observed that including pistachios in small portions reduces the glycemic peak after meals, which is essential for the elderly dealing with prediabetes, insulin resistance, or energy fluctuations. And there's one more thing that few people talk about. It helps with microcirculation, including in the extremities. This means warmer hands, less tingling, and less sensation of cold, as many elderly people report. And what is the best way to consume it? After 60, the ideal is a small and moderate portion, 18 to 20 units per day, always unsalted and without aggressive roasting. This amount is enough to improve circulation, control blood sugar, and provide antioxidant support, without excess and without digestive weight. When used this way, pistachios truly work in favor of your health. Now that you have seen which are the 4 nuts that can destroy your health after 60, and also the 4 that truly strengthen your body, your heart, and your energy, I need you to understand one important thing. Most elderly people do not know this. They keep eating exactly what is harming them, thinking it is healthy, and paying the price in the form of pain, fatigue, uncontrolled pressure, numbness, and silent inflammation. That is why so many people age suffering without knowing the reason. If you know someone who is over 60, someone who keeps complaining about hand pain, heavy legs, tingling, swelling, unstable pressure, this person may be going through exactly what I explained here. So I will ask you just one thing now. Share this video. Share it with a friend, a family member, someone you love, because simple information like this could be what separates old age from suffering. Sometimes, a simple sharing completely changes someone's life.